Hi, I'm Trent Nessler, National Director for Sports Medicine Innovation for Select Medical Outpatient Rehabilitation. I have the pleasure of sitting here with Dr. James Andrews from the Andrews Institute and National Director for Select Medical. Dr. Andrews, thank you so much for your time. Wanted to talk a little bit about ACL injuries. It seems like it's become this really big epidemic. Do you mind kind of talking a little bit about that?
Well, it's certainly the number one sports injury, serious sports injury that we see as sports medicine physicians. Of course, they're more serious than that, but that's the one to the knee that we see so frequently. As a matter of fact, I think the local statistics now in the U.S. show there's somewhere between 250,000 to 300,000 ACL injuries a year in mature adult athletes.
Is it more specific to one athlete or another athlete? Is it gender specific?
It's gender specific. Statistics show that females obviously have a higher rate of ACL injury in sports compared to males, and it varies from anywhere from 4 to 8 times. And of course, that depends on the sport too. The sport that's so predominant to females for ACL injury is female soccer. And by the way, the younger the athlete involved in that adult type sport, the higher the incident, the younger you are, the more likely you are to tear your ACL.
And so are there things that we can do as athletic trainers, as coaches, as physical therapists to try to help prevent these, or is that something that we just have to live with?
Well, you don't have to live with it. The problem is getting everybody to do what's out there that we know will help. There are a number of systems now that are being taught in the summer months in a number of the metropolitan cities where they spend the whole summer teaching young boys and girls how to jump and land, develop the hip strength, the core strength that they need, which we know has already been proven to prevent injuries in these youth cutting sports, particularly in youth soccer. So we know it works. It's a matter now of just getting it done. I understand that you have a method too that you're developing to help prevent injuries, ACL injuries. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
The program that we developed is called ACL Played Safe. You know, part of the challenge that we've had is how do you implement that into a practice? You know, and part of that comes from a time perspective. You know, because we know from the research that if it goes over 20 minutes that people just aren't going to do it. They're not going to be compliant with it. So one of the things that we do with that program is we actually do it at the end of their practice. And by doing that in the end of their practice, they're actually training in somewhat of a fatigue state. So that does two things for us. So when they're actually playing in a fatigue state, it carries over more.
No kidding.
Yeah. So the other thing about it is one of the challenges that we find is how do you instruct somebody in that? Because if I instruct the coach who instructs the athletic trainer or whoever, and they instruct the athlete, then sometimes that instruction changes. So one of the things that we actually did is we developed a free app that's available on iOS and Android that they can download that has a video for every single exercise that we do as a part of that program. So that way the instruction stays the same.
Now, does this last, or is this something they have to continue to do in relationship to whatever sport they're playing?
Well, just like any strength training, you have to keep it up.
Yeah.
Yeah, the strength is going to fall off. We find the best results are typically 3 times a week. So we don't do it on game days, we only do it on practice days, and it's something that we will actually do both in their on-season as well as their off-season.
If you were going to pick a specific sport, what sports would you really think this is most important to incorporate in your practice? What sports?
To me, female soccer, female basketball, and volleyball, and lacrosse.
We're seeing a lot of injuries now in lacrosse, both male and females. The one that really gets me, though, is female soccer. And these young girls are 13, 14 years old, usually, that tear their anterior cruciate. And you know, when you tear an anterior cruciate when you're 13 or 14, the chances of you being able to play a college sport
drastically reduced.
Go way down. Also, the chance of you tearing your other knee or having further trouble if you do get to college is way up, multiple, like 8-fold, because you had an injury at such a young age. The thing that I'm seeing is everybody's in such a hurry to when can I return to my sport? When can I get back on the soccer field? And let me tell you, one thing about the young females, they're a lot more competitive in general than the young boy athletes are. The youth female soccer players, if you can hold them out long enough to get well, you've really done something. And at 6 months after you do an ACL reconstruction, they're not well, believe me. And they're just dying to go back and start participating. And they go back at 6 months after an ACL reconstruction. Not only do they have a higher incidence to re-tear their graft that's just been operated on, but they've got about an equal chance of tearing the ACL in the other knee because she put so much stress on the so-called normal knee. For example, recent studies in the re-injury rate show, and parents should know this, you should wait at least 9 months before you allow anybody with an ACL reconstruction to return to their sport. At least 9 months. It's safer if you wait a full year. The thing that we can remember, and parents can remember, for every month that they return to their sport short of 9 months, for example, at 8 months, there's a 5% chance that they can tear the graft, the knee that's been operated on, tear it up again, or tear the ACL in the other knee. So if you come back at 6 months, there's at least a 15% incidence that they're going to tear up the operated knee or the unoperated knee and have to be reoperated on. And some statistics show that when they return at 6 months, there's about a 30%, and that's usually the young female soccer player, about a 30% chance they're going to have an injury.
Wow.
So you just cannot return before you mature and get all your muscle strength back and your performance back, and it's all a gradual step by step. But young female soccer players, man, they are really competitive.
Sure. So if there was 2 or 3 take-homes related to ACLs, what would we say as far as how do we prevent them? And
well, don't play any sport year-round. That's just common sense, and that's related to year-round fatigue. You know, the more times you practice, the more games you play per year, the more chances you've got of getting hurt, right? So be a sports sampler and develop both sides of your body and give your body a chance to rest, for example, from soccer, and play softball or swim or do some other sport. Be a sports sampler until you're about a senior in high school. The other thing is you need to make sure that your kids are involved in some type of preventative program or performance program like that you're developing, and they're available in the community. So look it up and get involved in those because they do help prevent injury. Statistics show in the studies that have been done on these preventative programs that they markedly decrease the rate of tearing ACLs in a specific sport.
Well, Dr. Andrews, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. Thank you for joining us today.